Welcome into another edition of This Week in UNC Baseball. I am Tommy Ashley. We're sponsored by Johnny T-Shirt and Congruity. That is Scott Forbes enjoying a morning cup of joe. No Grace Nugent. You can thank UNC spring break for that. Can't say I blame her, even though she's going cold weather. And Grace, if you're listening, you got to find the hot weather in spring break. But
Yeah,
Coach
no doubt.
Forbes, I don't know why you would go seek out cold weather intentionally, but such is first world problems. Coach Forbes, Stanford comes in first AC series and jumps on every mistake you make, especially Friday. Just the overall thoughts. I mean, we talked about it a little off the air, but it was closer than the scoreboard showed for sure.
Yeah, I mean, kind of a crazy 3 games. All games were close until we pulled away. Obviously, when we 10-run ruled them, but the Friday night game, is 6-6 going into the 6. We still have a chance there towards the end. And then yesterday, I also like to give credit where credit's due. Their starter has been hit or miss, and if he's on, you got your work cut out for you. Anybody that's 95 to 98 with a nasty cutter. And Aiden Hought matched him extremely well. But like we talked about, when you have two really good teams playing, as we're going to have all year, the whole season in the ACC, you have to do those little things. You have to make those plays that don't show up in the box score. You got to hit behind a runner. You got to be good runners in scoring position. And they were a little better at that than we were. And if you look at the stats of the weekend, you would look at it and be like, man, the stats favor UNC to even potentially sweep when one team is hitting at a 305 clip and the other team at 226. But that's why we talk about batting average can be extremely misleading. But our guys got after it. I tip my cap to Stanford. It'll be a learning process for us, and we're right back at it today on spring break. We got an awesome week ahead at Wilmington and at Louisville. But those losses, we've had them. It's a long season, and we'll learn from them. They'll make us better.
How much, I know in the post game yesterday and Friday, you say you don't like to say a lot after losses, but how much when you decompress and sort of deconstruct the game, that you look at the film, look at the tape, whatever you want to do, whatever you want to call it, and go back and discuss with the guys specific moments, specific plays, or just on a grand scale the whole weekend?
I think the biggest message was you find out we haven't really had to find out too much about how we're going to handle losses, number one, being down in a game late, things that we can't control, potentially like the umpire not being great that day. But you still have to play. So I think the biggest message, I know today with our players, we've already met, then they're going to go eat, and we'll come back here and lift and all that good stuff, is we've got to control what we can control. And that is us. Focus on your body language, your poise, and you just find out more about yourself as a team, as an individual, when you are down, when the umpire is bad, when the game's not going your way. And that's why those losses, you go back, you evaluate that, you watch video, you watch film, you go over it with your players and make sure we all understand, including from the coaching standpoint, right? Like, what could we do better? How did we react in this situation when this happened? Because at the end of the day, you got to move on. We talk about the next play mentality. So really for us this week, we're going to focus on, the body language, the poise, and the positivity.
How did you see the body language? Because it looked like some of the guys, you talked about the umpire. We know what happened yesterday. How did you see that they responded? I saw a little bit more, and this is my untrained eye, I saw a little bit more head dragging than I'd seen from your bunch. Of course, it's different when you're 13-0, but a lot of guys showed a little bit of frustration, but not a lot. Certainly not as much as the common man would have in those situations.
Yeah, again, that is something that we control. So that is definitely, it was not up to our standards in probably innings 6 through 9, but it happens. And when it happens, you call it out. As like Dean Smith said, what do? You recognize it, you admit it, and you learn from it. Then it's gone. And this group, they buy into what we talked to them about being here today, but also, being honest. Your body language it speaks clearly. And it's something that you have to work on even harder when you do get mad. Things aren't going your way, but that's when it's most important. So we talked about that, like, hey, we want to be the best in the country at it. We want to be better when it's going that way. It's easy to have body language, when it's 4-3 and we're ahead, or we're staying in the game. We walk off Coastal, but we want to have it if we do get punched in the mouth, and we want to just keep playing and keep playing. It's no different than what we talked about last year when we go to Miami and we get run ruled and then we get walked off. Like, you just have to learn to deal with it. It makes you better. But it is something that you can control. And if you get really, really good at it, I kind of used the analogy today. It's like, guys, listen, Mariano Rivera blew a lot of saves, and he also had a lot of saves, but his body language was always great. The great ones have it. Babe Ruth had the best OPS of all time, but he also struck out the most. So learn to deal with that failure and making sure that you hold yourself accountable. But it is something that's part of our culture and our standards. We work really hard at it. And sometimes it takes a mistake to get better at it.
Yeah, Jordan used to always say, I missed however many last 100%. Second shots. One player that sort of had a little rougher outing than he's used to, and I would wager it was probably his worst as a Carolina player, is Jason DeCaro. What do you say to him? How do you talk to him? Coach Gaines, Coach Howell worked with him coming off a performance like that where he did get knocked around a little bit. And maybe it's not something he's totally used to really in his career, because I'm sure in high school he didn't get knocked around a lot either.
Yeah, definitely. He had some failure last year. He'll say that he felt like his worst outing was against Long Island in that regional game, and then being able to bounce back from that. Jason, if you watch Jason, he's got good body language. He's the same guy. He battled. He just didn't have a great day on the mound, but he was still out there in the 6th inning. And that's what your Friday guys got to be able to do, which is why we sent him back out there. Jason's not a guy you have to work on that much. It's more like, hey, where were his mechanics? Why was he pulling the ball so much? Was he off a little bit mechanically, and address that? But the last thing we have to be concerned about is Jason DeCaro right here.
Yeah, he's definitely got it. For those listening to this, Coach pointed at between his ears, and DeCaro certainly got it there. Grace is not with us, but she did send me a long list of questions, and I'm going to work through them. I bet. If I had a scroll, I would pull it out and run it down. But one thing she asked, and we were talking about post-game, and it was relevant in your ejection yesterday, is what do you do when how do you, as a coach, try to get your guys fired up when whatever's not working?
Yeah, you shouldn't ever have to get them, quote, fired up. And I don't think I have to with this team. This team's going to show up ready to play every day. Again, when you haven't experienced it as a team, players have experienced it before, but that individual team hasn't experienced, like, okay, a game like this or a game like that. So it really does help you, even though the losses suck. You'd rather it help you when you find a way to win. But, the older I've gotten, the less I like to yell at umpires. I like to have a great relationship with them. I like to be honest with them. But if there is a time in the game of baseball that you feel like you're not getting calls repeatedly that maybe the other team is getting, you got to fight for your players. But then your players have to understand, we also talked about this today, you can't get caught up in it. You got to trust me as the head coach to do all I can to help you, to fight for you. But then you got to go play, because yesterday, for example, I did make that decision. I was going to fight for our guys. But I talked to them and said, hey, watching you on video, I feel like you were still playing a little bit of that blame game instead of listening to what I'm telling you is like, we can't control it, because he can still be bad after that ejection. And you have to deal with it. You might have to move on the plate more. You can't let it be an excuse. We're never going to blame a win or loss here on an umpire. Sorry, I'm not going to. Fans can. That's fine. But most of the time, he's not great either way. Sometimes you might get a homer guy here or there that can't do it when they're big crowds. But it's part of the game. I don't believe in degrading an umpire and all that stuff. But I do believe in fighting for your players at the right time. And I feel like we made some really good pitches. And I feel like we had taken some really good pitches from their guy that he was calling strikes. that could have changed the game. But then after that point, we have to learn, like, hey, we got to clear it and move on.
Yeah, I don't want to dwell on it too much, but I do want to ask the question because I talked to you about robo umps a long time ago,
Yeah.
and all the scouts are sitting back there, and everybody's got access to the TrackMan, and you can see whether it's a ball or strike in real time. The three pitches in question during that situation were all balls on the TrackMan. He called one of them a strike.
Correct.
How much do Mac Brown used to always talk about, we're going to go back and we're going to send these plays to the ACC. Is there a process for that with umpires? I think we've talked about this before, but I can't totally remember the discussion is, all right, obviously if an umpire is going to give a ball off the plate and it's a ball, but he's calling it a strike every time, you can work with that. How much review is there for individual umpires, especially behind the plate, in situations like that? And does it matter to the league and to college baseball, going back and look at these specific calls? How much is that done?
Yeah, it's done a lot more now than it used to be. So there's a lot of good about the TrackMan. There's a lot of bad. It's another thing I talked to our players about. Like, I eliminated that today. Like, we are not talking about, we can't keep it in the dugout, but you're not to look back there. You're not like, if he calls it at the end of the day, Tommy, if the umpire calls it a ball, it ain't
It's
changing.
a ball. Yeah.
And if he calls it a strike, it's a strike. Where the TrackMan has helped is holding umpires accountable for doing a good job. I mean, you're talking the ACC, the SEC. These guys are making a lot of money, and it's like anything else. In the business world, you have to do your job and do it well, and that's where it's helped. We get feedback. There is a buffer zone. They get a score, and for the most part, if you're not getting around 90% or above behind the plate, over time, they take you off the plate in the ACC and the SEC and some other conferences, which is really good. However, you can't get caught up in the game, in the middle of a game, because then it's too late if you look back and you're playing that blame game. So I think it's good for umpires learning to be better and more accountability. And I get the reports. I send them to our, the head umpire in the ACC. He wants them. And, then he has to do his job and talk to those umpires. But we also have some really good ones, and that's the thing I like about it. I can say, hey, man, like, you were really good yesterday. Like, you were really good. And hopefully the umpires respect that. And I don't say it in a demeaning way, like, man, like, tough day for you back there yesterday. Just so you know, you shot like an 84%, which is not good enough in this league. And you have egos involved and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, the best in athletics, or in my opinion in life, they're the most humble, and they want that feedback. The ones that you got to start figuring out which ones' egos are so big, you just don't even waste your time.
Yeah, it's an interesting dynamic, and it is not, college baseball is not just Major League Baseball. It's up and down. But I do find it interesting that the technology is there to get it right every time, and still it relies on a human being. So anyway, I told you I didn't want to dwell on that. I do want to dwell on a couple performances you had. Luke Stevenson obviously had a lot of guys there watching him. A lot of people expect a lot from Luke. Just his performance this weekend, especially on Saturday. I mean, he's mashing the baseball.
Luke is he's just a great player. He's a great leader. He's not an up and down player. He's going to play hard every single day. Luke's best trait is his top priority is winning. He's just so talented that he's going to be scouted and he's going to be drafted high. But I know that that's what a lot of those scouts, that makeup factor when you have that much talent, is a big deal. He's still young. He's still learning how to hit. He's still learning the strike zone. Hitting is an extremely difficult thing. But man, he's just special. He's just special is how I would say it. Tommy's always got a chance to leave the yard. He walks. He's hard to pitch to. And we can learn a lot from Luke as a team on how he carries himself. Because those guys aren't just good because they're that talented. He fails too. He didn't have a good week last week, but he's the same Luke. He's getting in the box with the same presence, the same routine, and it's just a matter of time. So, that's kind of how we've looked at the whole thing. Like, man, like, we really haven't gotten going offensively as far as driving the ball like we're capable of, and we're still 14-2.
How much does between his ears and his ability to relate to pitchers? I mean, you're throwing 8, 10, 12 guys, so he's got 12 different mental aspects to deal with on any given weekend. How how important is that when you look at a catcher, not just Luke, but
Hmm.
anytime you're looking at a catcher, that way to build a relationship, to be able to know, because you guys can't run out there and talk to the pitcher all the time. He can, or he can handle that. How important is that for you?
Well, this will tell you how important it is. Beside after pitchers, the top thing for us is a great catcher or multiple great catchers, even above a shortstop. We're going to get a shortstop. It's even harder. You better have with the caliber of arms we want in North Carolina. We got to have the same caliber of catchers, and that is my soft spot because I was one of them. I won one my whole life. I was a converted catcher, but I also know the challenges of catching because I played that position that people don't understand. You know, you get smoked at least once a game somewhere. It could be a finger, thumb, knee, thigh. So you have to have that toughness factor. You got to be to deal with it. You can't make excuses that after the first inning, you know, Cam Seagraves came out of the bullpen. He threw 197. He touched 98, and I can't feel my finger, but I still got to go in there and hit. You know, I mess with our position players all the time. Like all you softies that have never caught, you don't know what it's like to feel like a catcher does every single day. And those guys got to be your horses. They have to be tough, but they also, I feel like they have a different, what you're asking, Tommy, they have a different outlook on the game. And that helps them as hitters, right? They know, like, okay, as good as this pitcher is, I'm catching him. And he may be throwing 94, 96, but he's still making a mistake once every at bat, usually. So as a hitter, I got to try to hit that mistake. So he's, you know, you have a leg up automatically, and he's good with that too. He wants to learn. He's very good at coaching our pitchers, working with Coach Gaines, and he's also very good at working with McCadden Dye and Rom Kellis and helping them get better. So when they catch, they're prepared.
Yeah, paying it forward for sure. Talking to those, you know, people that do that for a living, they obviously know he can catch, he can hit. How does he act, and how does he relate to the pitchers? And it's huge. And it's one of the things, and the reason I ask you is because a lot of people don't consider that aspect of it. They say, "Oh, well, he didn't block that ball, or the ball got by, or he did block that ball." It's that communication to the guys on the mound.
Just the quality of the person. At
Yeah.
the end of the day, it's their character and their integrity, and that's what I'm going to get asked. You know, I saw a video went viral a couple years back. It happened to be Coach Saban, but it could be any coach. And he said, all these NFL scouts and GMs and owners, they've decided whether or not my kids are talented. They're asking me, what type of kid is he?
Yep.
Is he coachable? Is he a sponge? Is he a learner? Is he got high character? And Luke's got that, you know, and that's the best they do, or they're not going to be a sustained success.
There's a lot of athletes walking around on the streets with 10-cent heads, and it is what it is, and that's the difference maker. Another question from Grace. Maybe we're playing it up too much, but talk about Jake Knapp's journey. I mean, he was very good on Saturday, having gone through what he went through. Do you think that made him a better pitcher? Not a better person, because he seems to be a great young man, but do you think it made him a better pitcher, sitting and watching and having to heal and work his way back and all that, what all entails coming back from that surgery?
Yeah, because I was talking to Folger about this actually this morning. When something's taken away from you, you appreciate it more, unfortunately. That's how life works, but it was taken away just like that with Jake on a team that he felt like was much more talented than the team the year before, and an Omaha caliber team, which makes it even harder, obviously. And to know that you've worked so hard to be starting the season as the best pitcher, and then it's gone, yeah, it makes you better. And then you go one of two ways. You have a pity party, like I said, the first pitch banquet, you know, and you want to crawl under a rock and feel sorry for yourself, or you realize that ain't the way life works. You know, I gotta get down there with the guys, and credit to Jake. He didn't like that when we had that conversation, but he sure did it. And I called him Coach Knapp last year. Like I told you, sat beside me. He was locked in on pitch calling, coaching. He wants to coach. And that's definitely helped him where he can coach himself in the game, and he knows when to shake and when to trust the pitch that's called. So yeah, like we're lucky because, looking back on it now, you appreciate things more. The fact that team found a way to band together after losing a guy that was probably going to throw 130 innings. That's what I had on my Excel spreadsheet. And for the season, Tommy, I take an Excel spreadsheet and I predict Ken Emanuel's going to throw 120. Hob Johnson's going to throw 80. Benton Moss is the 13 team, for instance, and I get down there. I say, well, okay, there's our innings for the year. And we had him predicted, and then boom, he's gone. But then again, he helped us too in the dugout. He didn't let the guys focus on it, and he was with us every step of the way. And he worked his tail off, though, with Terry Joe, with Coach Gaines and Coach Howe, his body. I mean, he's a horse. You see, he told me, what his text was to me after the game? I shot him a quick text because I didn't shout, I just said complete game. We busted his chops because he got a complete game. And he said in caps, no more pitch count. And I just started laughing because in his mind, he don't want one. He wants to throw. He's got a Nolan Riley mentality, and that's rare these days. His mentality is I'm pitching once a week. Like, why should I have a pitch count? And I respect that.
Yeah, and like I tell people, he's a heck of a lot bigger than he looks. He might look big on the mound, but that's a big young man up in person. But talking with Scott Forbes, head coach of North Carolina. Scott, I got a few more for you. How do you prepare differently when you go on the road? How does that work? You go to Wilmington and then you're going to fly to Louisville and have that series. What is it? The same process, or is there a different process when you doing that other than you got to get on a plane to go play some ball?
I love it. I don't love leaving, my family, but I love being with the group. It's the things like this you'll miss so much, just being together, traveling, spring break. So that's why we scheduled the game at Wilmington. As much as we wanted to play at home during spring break, we haven't been on the road a ton. Wilmington's a tough environment. Then we know Louisville's going to be a tough environment. There are some things you do different, like we're going to play on turf. We'll probably take a lot of ground balls. We're going to play on turf tomorrow at Wilmington. We might take some ground balls over at the indoor today. We'll get there early, take extra ground balls. But really, just explaining to your team that it's harder on the road and embrace that, right? And that's what I told our team. Like, it is harder, but, that you can't use that ever as an excuse. You got to love doing it. You got to embrace it. But you plan more, you got more planning, you got more travel, meals, all that stuff. But we have so much help, and Dave Arendis and Carter and Daniel are so good at that. I just want our players to use a week like this during spring break, even though we're on the road, to catch up on their sleep, get their weightlifting in, and try to gain a little bit of strength.
When you go to a place like Louisville, is there any fun built in there?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great word. I talked to our players about that today. I said, you should be having, like, if you don't have fun here in the University of North Carolina baseball program, it's on you. Because as the head coach, like, I know we lost to Stanford yesterday, but I'm walking into – I'm going to have fun. Like, I'm going to dive in with the guys, get on the field. Today, for instance, we're going to practice. We're going to lift. We have a team meal at Monterey, and then we're going over to football. We're going to watch a movie together. They let us use their theater. And I'm going to be front and center like I was 18 years old, because I don't want to miss those moments. And I remind them, like, eliminate your phones, jump in it together, because these guys will only be together one time. So we try to have fun on the road, and I'm conscientious of that. Like, okay, this is a long season, right? You don't only want to have fun or enjoy being somewhere as a group when things are going perfect, right? So, yeah, we beat Louisville Friday night. Okay, well, we're still going to have a team meal together, either way, win or lose. I'm still going to walk in there, bless the team meal, and we're going to take showers, and the game's over. We're not going to be in there laughing if we lose, but then we're going to try to do something fun. Is it go to the Louisville Museum? Is it go, for a team meal? Is it define a Top Golf? Probably not Top Golf, because we don't want to swing in golf clubs, but something just to get them out of the hotel and keep them off these stupid phones and all that good stuff. So we try to do that as much as we can, for sure. It's hard sometimes because of the schedule. If you get rain, the night game, the day game. But like this week too, we want to watch our basketball team. We want to pull for them like crazy. So we'll try to watch it together. We try to get the flight moved up and get there and watch it together. Those type of things that create such great memories.
Yeah. How hard is it to get young men to realize that it's not like winning and losing is extremely important. That's why you guys are there, especially that's why you're there to win games. But how do you push through their heads that it's not life
Yeah.
or death? I mean, because it's difficult.
I think that they are going to learn from us how we dictate that. I don't think I'm here to win games personally. Like I've told you, I think that winning will take care of itself. I think I'm here to help these kids be better all around. That's how I approach it. And that's how our staff approaches it. We're ultra competitive. And sometimes you forget that. So you have to remind yourself and be grounded in the right things. Because at the end of the day, at the end of the day, you're going to remember the guy beside you for who he was. It's Carolina baseball. We feel like, okay, we know the expectations. We're going to win games, but we also want to know we got to have some convictions and that type of thing, and try to help these guys be better when they leave here. But man, at the end of the day, challenging the guys and reminding them, like, you are going to miss this. If I could go back, nobody even knows who North Carolina Wesleyan is. It's by the grace of God I'm the head coach at North Carolina. None of my friends probably like, how in the heck did that happen? But at the end of the day, I would go back to North Carolina Wesleyan in 1996, 97, on the field today and take BP and go to the cafeteria and hang out with my teammates right now. And they'll look back and be like, man, that was the best. So constantly reminding them of that and challenging them to have fun. And trying to pull some of the pressure off of them and reminding them the great thing about baseball is like that. You play so many games, you have to be able to handle that long season for sure.
Yeah. It's funny. Every old person would go back. Every young person wants to hurry up and get old. It seems.
Well, I mean, Tommy, I would go back and be in the dugout again for the national championship that we lost. I mean, I wanted to win it. Every player wanted to win it, but we didn't. And it doesn't change any opinion I have of any player that was on that team or any coach, of Coach Howell and Coach Holbrook and Coach Fox, all of us that were working together. As you get older, you realize that. And I think that helps you have more success. You look at a guy like a Freddie Freeman, you listen to all these guys, what their approaches are, they're able to separate it. And I think when kids start learning to be able to do that, hey, I'm Luke Stevenson and I play baseball. I am not Luke Stevenson, the baseball player. So we talk about that all the time and we work at it, but we're not perfect. But we sure try to drive that into them as much as they can. Like I told them today, hey, we aren't practicing what we preach if we're focusing on that loss to Stanford. We're going to prepare the same way, and then we're going to go enjoy the day. These guys are going to enjoy it the most because they're on spring break.
Hey, it gets no better than spring break college, period. Pitching rotation this week, I got to ask it.
Yeah, we Coach Gaines and I, mostly Coach Gaines. Coach Al spent a lot of time looking at Wilmington, especially Coach Gaines. We feel like a good matchup is Padgett. We feel like we've got our hands wrapped around our pitching staff now after 16 games. Is that right? 14-2?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
We feel like we know how to utilize guys in the right roles. Doesn't mean we're going to be perfect at it. But we feel like Folger Boaz, too. He might get some starts, but he's going to be a really vital part of our bullpen. But he started against Coastal, so it was a little harder to have that piece in place for Stanford. But after going through this weekend, looking at it, as good as Cam's throwing, Olin had a great outing out of the bullpen, which was great to see. We're going to start Cam Padgett against Wilmington. Mm-hmm. And then we're going to go with our same three, DeCaro, Knapp, and Houck. I thought Houck was really good again. Yeah. And unfortunately, so was their guy.
Yeah, it was a great matchup. That was the matchup that was expected on Friday night. the pitching duel
Yeah.
or whatever. And
I know, isn't it funny how the game works?
yeah, and I mean, when you can throw a guy like that out on Sunday, both teams,
Both
it's
teams.
pretty strong program. Sitting front row, courtside at Duke, North Carolina. Describe it for folks, because I've had the
Man.
pleasure of doing it as a press member back in the day when Press Row was down there. But what's that like sitting down there?
Just a once in a lifetime experience, and I got to sit with my beautiful wife, 24 years, just to create that memory. I actually texted the basketball coaches today, and we have a great relationship, but just thank you for creating a memory. It's something that we'll never forget. And then the appreciation of how good the players are. For me personally, I've sat down there before, but even Mandy's like, holy Moses, these guys are big, they're fast, how intense it is. But then, like we talked about, Tommy, to see them up close, they're kids.
Mm-hmm.
And these kids, that's the negative of the social media and stupid. I probably shouldn't say that, but I did. Just unfriendly, no feel, non-caring fans. Like, these are kids.
Mm-hmm.
They have parents. Like, they're not. There are a couple that aren't kids, maybe some 23 or 24-year-olds nowadays.
Yeah.
But there are also a lot of guys that are really like, they have to. I mean, they should be having fun too. And it looked like they were all caught up in just the teams. Those two teams, I mean, they left it on the court.
Mm-hmm.
And, our basketball team is, I've loved watching them because, they went through a tough spell. But, man, they have buckled up and they are playing every play hard. And that's been cool to see. But that was a great experience. It was awesome.
Yeah, it got loud in there for 10 minutes or so. And this, for a minute I thought, is this going to happen?
I know.
But to your point, and I'll get us out of here. One thing I've learned over covering and doing this stuff for 20 plus years is, and I preach it all the time, and people say, oh, it's ridiculous. They get paid now, blah, blah, blah. These guys are regular kids, regular young men, young women that have a talent. They have a different talent than most of us. They can play a sport. And when you get to see it up close and in full display, it's pretty impressive to see. I mentioned how big Jake Knapp is and all that, but you see those guys on the basketball court, on the football field or whatever, and then you realize, I got kids that age.
I know.
And how can I get so blitzed out mad when they screw up, when I can't get mine to do what I want them to do? And I love them. You know what I mean? So
well, I mean, a lot of those are the same people. Like, they get paid too. They got jobs.
Yeah.
Right? Like, so how are they doing their jobs? And you don't want anybody telling you how to do your job. So why don't you just show up and support them and be positive and understand that they are kids. Yeah, they may be getting paid, but they're still kids. Yeah. And, they mature and they get more mature. But man, it's they're so talented, aren't they?
Yeah. I mean, it's different when you are around people that are that talented. It doesn't have to be in sports. It can be in anything. It's just a different feeling when you're around people like that. And whether they play for Carolina or not, it's a different level. But yeah, I know there's people listening to this right here going, these two old dudes need to hush. I'm going to yell at my teams or whatever, but you and me are in lockstep in that.
Well, I mean, I'm a big believer in a positive, encouraging word and lifting people up and staying the course.
Yep.
It'd be everybody be all over and happy. All of a sudden, you go on a run, you're in the Final Four, and you're playing national. You know how sports work. But at the end of the day, you also know, I know, after coaching a long time, how hard it is to, get to the, be like one of the top teams in the country, but also be in that mix every single year. It can be an injury. It could be a recruit pick somebody else. It could be you had success on the portal this year. You didn't have as much this year. And I really believe you're going to see that. We're all going to see that more every year because, nobody's perfect. And you may think, hey, you got this, you got that, or you could hit it on both sides, right? You could hit in the portal and the high school. They both show up on campus, then you have a really good mix. But if you hit it on the portal, those guys are gone quickly. So it's a little bit different.
Getting there or staying there, what's harder?
Staying.
Yep. Because you get the target at that point.
And that's what you want, in my opinion. Like you want, if we hadn't made Omaha in 2006, 7, 8, 9, and then had the success we've had in our baseball program, the expectations wouldn't be the same. I like the expectations. I don't look at it as pressure. I look at it as like, yeah, that's a good thing. Like we want to want everybody to expect North Carolina to be one of the top baseball programs in the country. You just got to deal with it and hope that at the end of the season you are.
Absolutely. That's head coach Scott Forbes. It's been the Inside Carolinas this week in UNC Baseball. Appreciate it, Scott.
Thank you, Tommy. Always a pleasure.
Yep. Thank you.